What happens when a soulful singer sits across from one of television's most outspoken hosts, and the conversation takes a turn no one saw coming? What was supposed to be a warm, routine promo for Teddy Swims on The View spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime TV history. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and by the end, Teddy was walking off set, leaving the hosts speechless and the audience frozen in stunned silence. This is the story of how a simple interview turned into a viral moment that had millions talking. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments what you would have done, because this one has layers. The lights were bright, the crowd buzzing, as Teddy Swims' reel named Jayton Dimsdale took his seat. His new album was climbing the charts, and he carried the easy calm of a man doing what he loved. But across from him sat Joy Behar, the veteran host known for her sharp wit and sharper tongue, and the conversation was about to go off the rails. "So, Teddy," Joy began, leaning forward with that signature smirk, "your music has this raw, emotional quality. Tell me, is that authenticity something you have to work at, or does it just come naturally when you perform?" Teddy smiled politely. "I don't think authenticity is something you can fake. Either you're real with people, or you're not. My music comes from real experiences. My struggles, my mistakes, the things that shaped me." "Personal experiences," Joy repeated, arching an eyebrow. "Well, I was reading about your background. Quite a journey from small-town Georgia to the big stage. But let me ask, don't you think artists today sometimes manufacture those struggle stories to seem more relatable?" The audience went still. Teddy's expression barely changed, but something behind his eyes shifted. "Are you suggesting my experiences aren't genuine?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Oh, no," Joy said with a dismissive wave. "Not you specifically. I'm just saying the industry loves a good rags-to-riches story. Sometimes those narratives get enhanced." "Enhanced," Teddy repeated slowly, his jaw tightening. "Joy, with all due respect, I don't think you realize what you're implying." Whoopi Goldberg tried to break the tension with a quick laugh, but Joy kept pushing. "Look, Teddy, I'm not attacking you personally, but you've got to admit, there's a formula to these things. The struggle, the breakthrough, the emotional connection, it's almost a template, isn't it?" Teddy leaned forward, eyes locked on her. "A template? Joy, are you really sitting here telling me that the years I spent working construction, sleeping in my car, playing to 20 people in a dive bar, that's just a template to you?" "I'm just saying." "No," Teddy cut in, his tone rising. "You're talking about things you clearly don't understand. You want to talk about templates? Let's talk about your template, the talk show host, who thinks they can minimize someone's real life because they've never had to wonder where their next meal's coming from." The audience gasped. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. Joy's face turned pink, but she wasn't backing down. "Excuse me, I've had my share of struggles too. I didn't just fall into this career." "I'm sure you've had challenges," Teddy said, his southern drawl thickening with emotion. "But questioning whether my story is real, whether my music comes from truth, that's not just disrespectful to me. That's disrespectful to anyone who's ever fought to turn pain into art." Sarah Haynes tried to steer things toward Teddy's tour, but the damage was done. The tension between Joy and Teddy was a live wire. Joy crossed her arms. "You know what, Teddy? Maybe you're being a little too sensitive. This is TV. We ask tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you're not ready for this level of fame." The line hit like a slap. Teddy's eyes darkened, his voice dropping low. "Too sensitive. Lady, you just spent 5 minutes questioning my integrity, my authenticity, my entire life story, and now you're telling me I'm too sensitive for standing up for myself?" Joy opened her mouth, but Teddy wasn't finished. "The floodgates were open. You want to know what's not authentic?" he said, leaning forward, his voice echoing across the silent studio. sitting behind that desk, making six figures to tear down people who've actually lived through something real. You want to talk about templates? Let's talk about the template of privileged media personalities who think they can psychoanalyze a person's life in a 5-minute segment. The audience sat frozen. For a moment, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Then slowly, Teddy Swims stood. He looked at Joy, then at the crowd, and said quietly, "You can keep your template. Joy, I'll keep my truth." And with that, he walked off the set, leaving Joy Behar staring after him, and an entire nation talking about what had just happened. Joy's mouth fell open, completely caught off guard by the fire in Teddy's response. She clearly hadn't expected pushback from what she assumed would be just another polite, compliant celebrity guest. "Now wait just a minute," she started. "No, you wait," Teddy cut in, standing up so suddenly that the camera operators scrambled to adjust their shots. His chair screeched across the floor. "I came here to talk about my music," he said, his voice shaking with barely contained anger. "To share something I care about with your audience. Instead, you decided to turn this into some kind of gotcha moment." Whoopi leaned forward, trying to calm the room. "Okay, let's just take a breath here." But Joy was already leaning in, her competitive instincts kicking in like a reflex. "Teddy, you're acting like a child right now. This is what interviews are. We ask questions. We dig deeper. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The word child hit Teddy like a slap. He stared at her, stunned. "A child?" he echoed. "You know what's childish, Joy? Sitting there with that smug little smirk. Acting like you've got me all figured out when you don't know the first thing about my life." The other hosts looked visibly uncomfortable. Sunny Hostin nervously fidgeted with her note cards. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she wanted to sink into her chair. The audience was silent, completely captivated, witnessing a train wreck in real time. Joy crossed her arms. "I know enough," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I know that every singer who comes on this show has the same story. Tough childhood, big dreams, the big emotional breakthrough. It's like you all went to the same media training school." That was it, the final straw. Teddy stepped forward, his jaw set. "Media training school? Are you out of your mind? You think sleeping in my car between gigs was media training? You think working 2 jobs just to afford studio time was part of some PR plan?" "I think," Joy began, but Teddy lifted a hand, calm, deliberate, commanding. The entire studio fell silent. "No," he said quietly, but every word carried the weight of thunder. "Let me tell you what I think." He paused, just long enough for the tension to crawl across the room. "I think you're so disconnected from reality that you can't recognize authenticity even when it's sitting right in front of you. I think you've been living in this bubble for so long that you've forgotten what it means to actually struggle for something." Joy's face flushed crimson. "How dare you make assumptions about my life? How dare I?" Teddy laughed. But there was no humor in it. "That's rich, coming from someone who spent the last 10 minutes making assumptions about mine. The difference is, my assumptions are based on the way you sit there, acting like you're better than everyone else, while yours are based on what? Some article you skimmed before the show? The tension was suffocating. Even the crew, veterans of live TV chaos, looked shaken. Sarah Haynes tried one last time to steer things back to safety. "Maybe we can talk about the positive response to your latest single." Teddy turned toward her, softening his tone slightly. "Sarah, I appreciate you trying to keep this professional," he said. "I really do, but I think we're past that point." He turned back to Joy, locking eyes with her, his calm now sharper than any shout. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, voice steady, eyes blazing. "I'm going to finish what I came here to say. Then I'm going to leave, and you're going to sit there and listen, without interrupting me for once in your life." "Excuse me?" Joy sputtered. "This is my show." "Actually," Teddy said, gesturing toward the other hosts. It's their show, too. You just seem to forget that sometimes. He took a breath, steadying himself. Then, with quiet power, he began. I grew up in a town where the biggest excitement was Friday night football. My dad worked in a factory. My mom cleaned houses. We didn't have money for music lessons or fancy equipment. Everything I learned, I taught myself. Joy started to speak, but one look from Teddy shut her down. When I was 22, he continued, I was living paycheck to paycheck, playing cover songs in bars where half the crowd was too drunk to even notice. I didn't have industry connections. I didn't have a trust fund. What I had was a voice, a dream, and the stubborn refusal to quit. The studio was silent. Even Joy, where for once, had nothing to say. So when you sit there, Teddy said softly, with your comfortable salary and your guaranteed platform, questioning whether my story is real, it doesn't just insult me. It insults everyone who's ever had to choose between paying rent and chasing their dreams. Whoopi nodded slowly, visibly moved. That's real, she said quietly. But Joy couldn't help herself. Her voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Look, Teddy, I get it. You're passionate. But you're taking this way too personally. I'm just doing my job here, Joy said, her tone defensive. Teddy looked at her for a long moment. Not angry now, just disappointed. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, steady, and heartbreakingly sincere. Your job, he said quietly, is supposed to be about having real conversations with people, not tearing them down for entertainment. But clearly, we have very different ideas of what that means. He turned toward the other hosts, then directly into the camera. To everyone watching, he said, I want to apologize. You tuned in expecting to hear about music, not to witness a circus. That's not what I came here for. He looked back at Joy, his tone firm now, the kind of calm that carries more weight than shouting ever could. I've met a lot of people in this industry, Joy. Some genuine, some fake, most just trying to make it through another day. But I've never met someone so determined to tear others down just to feel important. That's not journalism, he said. That's just sad. The words hit like a thunderclap. Joy's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For once, she had nothing to say. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to step in or stay silent. Teddy reached down, unclipped his microphone, and placed it gently on the table. That single act said more than 100 speeches could. You know the real difference between people like me and people like you, Joy, he said quietly. When I fail on my own. When you fail, you take everyone around you down with you. Now hold on, Joy began, but Teddy cut her off. I'm done holding on, he said simply, stepping back from his chair. I came here with respect for this show, for what it's supposed to represent. But I'm not going to sit here and let you turn my life into your punching bag because you're having a bad day. Whoopi leaned forward gently. Teddy, please, let's just... He turned to her, softening. Whoopi, I've got nothing but respect for you. For Sarah, for Sunny, for Alyssa, you all know the difference between a real conversation and an ambush. But this, he gestured toward Joy without even looking at her, this isn't professional. It's not even entertaining. It's just mean-spirited, and I won't be part of it. Joy's face was now flushed crimson. You can't just walk out because you don't like the questions. Teddy turned back and said 2 words that would echo across the internet for weeks. Watch me. He started walking off the set. The audience gasped. Phones already out, recording every second. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Joy shouted after him, her voice cracking. You can't handle pushback, so you throw a tantrum and storm off. That's not very authentic, is it? Teddy stopped cold. For a heartbeat, the studio held its breath. He didn't turn around, didn't even raise his voice. You want to know what's authentic, Joy? He said. Knowing when someone isn't worth your time. He paused, long enough for every word to sting. I hope whatever satisfaction you get from this was worth it, he added softly. Because you just showed everyone watching exactly who you really are, the audience murmured. Some clapped softly. Others just stared, stunned. Joy stood up, trying to reclaim control. Oh, so now I'm the villain because I asked a few tough questions? This is what's wrong with your generation. You think everyone should just tell you how wonderful you are. Teddy spun around, eyes blazing. My generation, he repeated, his voice shaking with conviction. Lady, my generation is out there working 3 jobs just to afford rent, trying to survive in a world that's burning down around us. We don't need people to tell us we're wonderful. We just need people to stop tearing us down for sport. Joy opened her mouth, but Teddy held up his hand. I'm done, he said. No anger now, just exhaustion. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this attitude. And I'm done pretending that what just happened here was anything close to professional journalism. He turned to the camera one last time. For anyone watching, anyone who's ever been told their dreams don't matter, their story isn't real, or their struggle isn't valid, don't let people like this make you feel small. Your experiences are real. Your voice matters. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are or where you came from. With that, Teddy Swims turned and walked off the set. The audience erupted, half in applause, half in stunned disbelief. Joy sat frozen behind the desk, flustered and trembling. Well, she stammered into the camera, that was unexpected. I guess some people just can't handle. Maybe we should just go to commercial, Whoopi said sharply, cutting her off. But it was already too late. In less than 15 minutes, a routine interview had turned into a viral explosion that would be dissected, replayed, and debated across the internet for weeks. As the show faded to commercial, the camera lingered for just a second long enough to catch the empty chair where Teddy had been sitting. That silence? That wasn't just dead air. It was the sound of a reckoning. Because what Teddy Swims did on live television that day wasn't a meltdown. It was a reminder that behind every artist, every song, every so-called story, there's a real person fighting to be seen. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stand up and walk away.